Poisonrana.
Hello.
Hello.
Braden Herrington here with Davie Portman for Poisonrana. You found us on whatever podcast app you use, and we are live. Where are we live, Davie?
We are live on youtube.com/@PoisonRanaPod. /@. It's still so awkward to me. But yes, that's where we are.
Yeah, very strange, the YouTube ads. But yeah, welcome. We are the BDE. We are Poisonrana. We're going to chat all about some wrestling, but we got some hot topics to discuss, and we are not alone in discussing these topics because today we have ourselves a guest on our show.
We do indeed. Xenia, hello. Welcome to Poisonrana. How are you doing?
Great to be here. I'm doing so well. How are you guys?
So what's this whole connection? We got connected through our friend and good sir, Mr. John Cena, who I think sees you at a bunch of wrestling shows and whatnot.
Possibly. I got messaged by John telling me that I could do something with you guys and that you would be glad to have me. So
excellent.
I am here.
I mean, we do mostly we do Up Next every Tuesday talking about NXT, and this week we talked about a match that happened, and then the next day the kind of the real story behind that kind of broke. And the story is the Mandy Rose thing with WWE, and we're definitely going to be talking about it. But me and Davie, we're just two dudes who do these shows. And we thought that I think a specific topic like this today couldn't just be two dudes talking about it. So we definitely thank you for coming on here and joining in on this conversation, because I feel like we couldn't do it justice discussing this whole thing. And I mean, the story, kind of jumping into it, if we can, is pretty big and pretty crazy. We do NXT reviews every week, and this Tuesday, when the title match was just instantly shifted to this show and added to the show instead of just in a few weeks that it was kind of promoted, a lot of fans kind of instantly were like, something's going on. And then the next day, the story breaking that WWE has come to the release of Mandy Rose, it sent kind of shockwaves through the wrestling community and especially everybody on the internet wrestling community, and has a lot of people talking and a lot of people's different takes and opinions and stuff. And that's what we kind of want to talk about here today. And what are some opinions on this kind of story? Because it seems as if, reported that because of an online fan account or a personal website where she gives out content, including nude content, I guess you could call it that. I would not call this pornography whatsoever. In my opinion, it's more to me like an OnlyFans or something like that. And now instantly WWE using that as the reason to instantly cut ties with her. What the hell's going on?
Yeah, first of all, I commend you guys for realizing that you need a female voice on this topic. I wish more people would do that, because a lot of the times in wrestling we just have a bunch of dudes talking about women things, which is not always very accurate or or backed by actual life experiences. With the Mandy Rose thing, I actually had one of my tweets go like semi-viral right after Fightful reported on the release, and I said that this is the same company that, according to Athena, who mentioned it in an interview with Chris Van Vliet, wanted her to present more sexual like Mandy Rose. So we had an actual name drop. We had other female wrestlers being told that this is what they have to be like, and now we have Mandy Rose possibly being punished for this exact thing. So people also did say in the comments that it was a different management back then, it was a different time, which they say it like it was 20 years ago. It was not. It was pretty recent, actually. But to me, it is a paradox and it is unfair. But the thing with this problem is that it's actually very, very layered. And a lot of the arguments that people make that might seem contradictory are both fair. So when we go into, oh, why is this woman being punished for creating this premium content, quote unquote, right? And people say, oh, it's because in her contract, it's mentioned that she's not allowed to make money off content outside of it. But then we have other insiders, and again, I'm basing this off of reports that I saw. We don't know what actually happened on the inside, but there's other reports that the company actually knew about the website, and it was, green light, they knew about it, but then suddenly they decided that the content is getting too racy, and that's when they decided to take measures. And the snowball just keeps going. It's like, oh, this thing, but also this other thing.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of kind of contradictory stuff, because there was the whole kind of Twitchgate stuff a couple of years ago with Zelina Vega obviously getting her release for not stopping her Twitch account. And that seems to be something within kind of the new regime that has been relaxed. We have seen more people kind of pushing their Twitch and their outside content. And by all accounts, it does seem like people within WWE knew about Mandy Rose's account. By all accounts, she's making quite a bit of money from it. Which you would think maybe in the past we've seen WWE kind of wanting to get their hands in there. But it seems to be like since some of this content got leaked publicly, that this release has come about, when these kind of images have become a bit more racy and have been released online. And I don't know, there's that whole thing about, sponsors and kids potentially seeing this or whatever, but that isn't a reason to punish her. Like, that is theft, that is piracy, whatever you want to call it. That is a crime against Mandy Rose, in a way no different from the Paige case a few years ago, where Paige had something, okay, that was private between sort of her and a boyfriend, but this is somewhat private between you and your paying customer. So it does seem a complete double standard, especially as you brought up the kind of edict for the women in NXT to dress like sexier, racier, which is, I don't think has changed at all since the new management. We still see those shots when Toxic Attraction come out. We still see them FaceTime each other while they're sunbathing or whatever. Like, nothing has changed there. Her whole promo videos for her kind of title run has been like, I'm sexy, I'm good looking, but I can wrestle as well. So they haven't moved away from that at all. So
there's just a lot of things in there that are so contradictory, just like you mentioned. It's that, oh, she was making content, but it's quote unquote sexual content, as opposed to Zelina's Twitch that she was allowed to keep, and other wrestlers have YouTube channels. But then we have, and I don't want to name drop because I don't want to make it sound like I'm blaming someone, right? But there's female wrestlers on the main roster who actively sell similar content. Then we come to the point of, oh, but this website was too adult. But where does that come in? Like, what's the measure of a content becoming too adult? Because even on my tweet, I had someone comment that, like, oh, Mandy Rose is making literal porn. And my question was, what do you mean by literal porn? And I guess some of the pictures that were leaked could be interpreted as that. But this is just us nitpicking at levels of someone's sexuality that they're comfortable expressing, and that's just really not our place to do, or for that matter, not the company's place to do. Because if we have several people doing similar types of content, you can't cherry pick what's good and what's not. And then the Mattel deal comes in, because the big point in the story was not even the WWE contract, but that WWE has the agreement with Mattel, obviously, to produce toys that we all know and love. And Mattel largely caters to kids, so that we can't have someone producing sexual content on the internet. But then again, like you said, it was appropriately paywalled, it was appropriately age restricted, and it was stolen. So yes, how is it different from Paige's scandal? How is it different from Seth Rollins? How is it different from Matt Riddle? to me, it really is not.
I will say, like, I do agree with that. I will say that if you are putting something out there that, like, there is a way bigger chance of that happening. I know there's looks of people, like, on social media that it looks like some people who were either actually leaking this stuff or finding the leaks and then posting it and basically adding Mandy Rose or tagging and, like, blatantly taking this, like, this content is behind a paywall and blatantly putting it out there. There was people tweeting her being like, Venmo me money or I won't take this down on, like, tweets at replies to her post that have nothing to do with that. That is, like, totally like wrong and definitely, and it seems that this became a story because of that. Like, if it seems like they were fine with all of this stuff until someone went, well, actually, did you see what some of these photos were? And then they looked at it and they went, ooh, maybe we can't maybe back this if some people do think that, like, hey, this is kind of porn. I don't think it would be considered that, considering it's just, like, probably photos that she's posting, but again, for a paywall, for a content creating service, and for them to say, oh, actually, you can Twitch, then people should be allowed to also create and do whatever else content, like you said, cherry picking. They shouldn't be allowed to just be like, well, you can do Twitch and you can go sell other merchandise or create other stuff using your WWE affiliated name. Then people should also be allowed to do this. What I think is, like, the unfortunate part of this is someone obviously decided to leak this, but then to go into it even further, that someone has now, like, lost their job because of this. Yeah. There is definitely, like, you could see obviously two sides looking at it, but I still see it as like, this person was found a side hustle that was working, that's probably working more now. I know that since being released, she has put out a statement and ending the statement with, like, hey, the site's still up, and it went from like a 25
and she raised the price,
to, like,
too.
Yeah, good for her. Get that fucking
but then you've
that's awesome.
You've got, on the other hand, on the main roster, your main event act, the hottest thing in wrestling right now, the Bloodline, when there's a video out there of Jimmy Uso intoxicated, driving, and the statement was basically, these are independent contractors, what Jimmy Uso does in his own time is up to Jimmy Uso. And that's, that's not behind a paywall, that's for anyone to access and see. And
that's actively harmful as opposed to an OnlyFans.
Instead of just a body. Like, it's a consensual pictures that isn't harming anyone. And if you're worried about kids seeing it, well, parents, parent blocks. Like, watch what your kids look at on the internet. And it's such a double standard where I think if this was a case when, say, the Zelina Vega thing happened and it was just a flat no, you work for WWE, you do not produce outside content, and we've had a word about this, here's your warning, okay, I'd be a bit more understanding. But I just think there's so many holes in this and so many double standards that like, it's, yeah, and as you said, someone's lost their job over this, and by all means, I'm sure she'll be fine. Like, I'm sure Mandy Rose will be financially okay coming out of this. But it just leaves a really icky taste in your mouth, especially when, we're going to move on in a second talking about Vince McMahon, and then the double standards just scream even louder.
I just want to mention one last thing, because to me, another layer of a problem with this, and to me as a person, it might be even the biggest problem in this regard, is that on the one hand, it is, obviously a stigma that's around sex work, right? And that's exactly why Zelina's Twitch is doing perfectly fine and nothing is happening and this is blowing up. But also, even though I do feel like, obviously, sex work is work, we need to protect sex workers, but in the wrestling industry specifically, and especially lately, this past maybe 3, 4, 5 years, women have been actively encouraged, if not to say pushed, into sex work. It's just so expected, it's just so default. Like, if you're a woman in wrestling, not even a performer, like, I'm also judging by my own experience. You're not even a performer, you're not even actively wrestling, you're just somewhere adjacent. And it's not even the question of when someone goes into your DMs or someone leaves a throwaway comment. It's not even, do you have an OnlyFans? It's what is your OnlyFans? Just because it's so widespread, which in itself is not a bad thing at all, but it is a bad thing that it's so expected, that it's so almost required out of women's wrestlers right now. And there's just such a disconnect of how, on the one hand, you are pushed to be sexual, again, going back to the Athena story, you're pushed to have this kind of content, but then you do like there's one misstep. You're walking on eggshells all the time. There's one misstep and you're instantly punished for it and you're instantly shunned for it. And that to me is the biggest problem with this. How actively women are pushed into monetizing their sexuality, but then the second it actually benefits them and not the company, not the fans, not the whoever or whatever else, then it's the problem. And that to me is the saddest part of the story.
Absolutely. You're right. Like, nail on the head there. I feel that. Like, look, I've watched wrestling since I was a young boy, and they promoted Playboy constantly. Every year there was different people, but they become, more into kids. I see the other side of it because, yeah, again, everyone's talking about, well, they have deals with toys, Mattel and stuff like that. How could you, crossing the line? But it was the fact that this all happened when it was leaked, so that still makes it all so much more messier. You don't think, like, her website, I'm sure, says, hey, you need to be 18 plus to look at this is behind a paywall. Of course there's people who leak all these kinds of things online, and the internet's a crazy wild west still, but like, the fact that now they're mad because we're not making a part of that pie, which I'm sure she's making a lot out of, and good for her, especially now not being a part of WWE. If I was her, I would, she doesn't need to really wrestle, but to really like rub it in and get even, more eyes on the story. That's still a really hot story. Like, show up somewhere else and make that your, like, promote that, like, hey, go follow me and stuff. They didn't let me do all this, but go follow me and see what I can do. Like take it and almost like rub it in their faces that, like, well, I can go make a lot of money, and the fact that loses the title next morning released, it's just like, whoa, okay, WWE still gonna WWE with or without.
Something did smell fishy on Tuesday, didn't it? Just how
it
quickly,
did.
like how long a reign this has been, and we've seen them building up Roxanne Perez for this moment, but it was suddenly like, and that moment's happening right now. It was like, okay, that's a strange decision, but became very clear the next morning.
Yeah.
Well, I think let's move on to a somewhat related subject in Vince McMahon himself. A lot of Vince talk coming out this week with the Vince McMahon documentary, the new Wall Street Journal article, and kind of rumblings that he's trying to come back to the company.
Oh my God.
Did you both get a chance to watch this documentary at all?
I have not seen the documentary, but I read the article, and again, I feel like we as wrestling fans on the inside of the community just know these things already, and it's only when a mainstream outlet gets a hold of that's why it's a big story. And that's also kind of sad, if we're honest, because wrestling, even on the level of the fan community to this day, has such a boys club mentality that we're just comfortable keeping it all in, and we're just comfortable just shrugging it off. That's like, honestly, that's my main problem with the aftermath of Speaking Out, and with the way that almost every single one allegation story is handled. So many people, the majority of the community, are just so willing to just shrug it off and just keep going and separate the art from the artist or whatever. But as we can see, the second it touches mainstream media, normal people are not that comfortable with separating art from that kind of artist. So honestly, I think for us as fans, it should be, when those stories reach mainstream media, it should be a marker of how bad it actually gets sometimes.
Yeah, as wrestling fans, I mean, we knew these kinds of stories, and we're always like, part of me watching this documentary was just a lot of rehash of what Dark Side of the Ring did. There was some new interviews, but there wasn't, like, again, as a wrestling fan, if you follow this stuff pretty deeply and you get into it, you're kind of watching this like, ooh, I wonder if there's a chance they talk about. Nope, okay, they didn't do that. Okay, well, maybe they'll talk about that. Nope, okay, they didn't do that. They're just going to talk about that other one again. It's like there's probably like it's the guy is not with WWE anymore, and now the story is now he wants back
For
in.
now.
Yeah, so like the whole fuck 'em thing is like taken to a whole other level, because now it's like the documentary made it seem of some people they talked to, including Alvarez and Meltzer, who they're the godfathers of this kind of stuff. They're making it seem like Vince is still running some stuff. Like the jokes of all us wrestling fans are like, yeah, well, Triple H just opens up his text from Vince and then says, okay, Austin Theory is going to now do this. Like there's jokes that he's still running things from not running things. And like, maybe that's more apparent with people thinking like, hey, as things are getting better, they're still kind of the way they were. But now that this guy, even though there's more articles and there's all these stories out, he still wants to come back and still thinks that he can be still part of this like machine where like, the doc covers a lot of things, but if you are non-hardcore, like you said, that once the mainstream like shows all these shady things, then it's like definitely out there. So I don't think the comeback will be a success for Vinnie Mac. No chance in hell.
I think that,
and that's definitely a popular opinion that he's actually running things still behind the scenes, right?
I buy it.
We have to look at the facts in a sense, right? So since he left, their shares grew 15%. Since he left, people that he fired have been rehired. So if he's still running some things, it doesn't mean that there wasn't a change. There pretty obviously was a change. And honestly, I don't feel like it would be a good thing for him to come back. Another thing is that WWE as a company is refusing over and over repeatedly to comment on any of the allegations. And as a publicly traded company, there's only so long that they can refuse commenting on this. Like if there's going to be any legal action, if there's going to be any anything to be paid financially, they would have to talk about it sooner or later, and that's when it's actually going to hit the fan.
Yeah, I felt that was the biggest thing about the documentary, because I didn't think the quality of the doc was there, to be honest, as a documentary itself. It was a lot of stuff from Dark Side and things, but I feel maybe as someone watching it, not knowing any of this, having it all condensed into one thing, and then ending with that Stephanie, like, thank you, Vince thing, you'd just be going, what the fuck is this company? This is wild. You're going back to, like, briefcases with Jimmy Snuka way back when, to the Owen Hart thing, to all these allegations and stuff, and yet we're like applauding him, and you're seeing people in the crowd doing that. Like, that to someone completely outside of this world would just think is absolutely nuts. But the thing, as someone watching it who knows all this stuff, that kind of shouted out to me was Vince Russo pointing out that Vince has stayed so quiet through all of this, hasn't made a comment, whereas all the rest of the time he's been quite like fighting back against anything, any sort of allegation, steroid trials and stuff. He's like, right, let's get Jerry McDevitt, let's go, and fights these things, where he's just stayed very quiet, did that retirement tweet, and yeah, I mean, I think he's majority shareholder there, so in theory, I assume he could kind of, if he wanted to, potentially come back, but it's going to take your sponsors and all that, who've hopefully are aware of all these things, to go like, absolutely not. If he's there, we ain't there. As you said, the share prices have gone up dramatically since he left, and the quality. I think we have had a bit of a honeymoon period. It's WWE is still nowhere near perfect, but the quality has improved of the product, and I really, it would be such a detriment to this company at this point for Vince to come back.
To me, honestly, the craziest part was his last WWE TV appearance, because it was freshly after any of the like official allegations, again, mainstream media reports came out, and everyone tuned in because everyone was like, oh my God, what is he going to say? And then he just didn't say anything. And to me, that's confidence. To me, that's cockiness. To me, that's him saying, I don't actually care.
Yeah.
And that's honestly, I don't know, maybe he's so confident that nothing's going to happen, that he's going to come clean out of this. Or maybe it's just that in this little wrestling world, he's perfectly aware of how people are. And he's perfectly aware that people who actually consume his product don't really care. And that's a way of pointing it out, which again, sad, but unfortunately, that's the reality. And like you said, we saw people in the crowd applauding him, doing the worship thing and all of that. And there could be two possible reasons to that. Reason number one is that Twitter is not real, internet is not real, and people who actually come to shows in the flesh are very different people. And I was never, into that theory really until I actually went to a Raw in Jacksonville in Florida. And we live on the internet, we're terminally online, and we're not real people. Because during the main event, that was exactly when people were speculating on when Cody Rhodes is going to come back to WWE. And the match was kind of stretching too long, and the guy behind me was like, someone's going to interfere, like, what's happening here? And I was like, maybe Cody Rhodes. And the guy goes like, who's that? So maybe we are actually terminally online, and people who go to shows are just blissfully unaware. But
you're so right.
Another option could literally be that they are those people you see on the internet who are like, no, I'm just going to separate art from the artist. Who are like, no, I need an actual trial to believe this. Who are like, innocent until proven guilty. We do see a lot of those people on those discussions as well. So they just might as well be those people. Or also, from the media standpoint, me doing media in wrestling, sometimes you just can't afford to jump to about whoever or whatever, just like, oh, this is an evil company. I'm going to withdraw support. I'm going to give zero support. I'm going to give zero flowers. Sometimes you can't do that because you have to report on things, or because you're just so used to viewing this as the only or the better product that you consume, and you have to make a more informed decision, I guess. So we really do not know, but the fact remains a fact that people in the building that night, and probably even more people around the world, didn't care.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Especially like I imagine you had tickets. I think it was the SmackDown, right? It was a Friday that he came out, right? The Together Forever Together thing. I feel like imagine you were there. You were picturing him coming out and cutting this promo or something. The fact that they announced he was going to be on the show, and then he does that. I feel like if I'm there, everyone's going to be clapping and doing the bowing thing because it's like it's the funny thing to do. But then you're like, wait a second, this guy's out here. Basically, he didn't say fuck him on TV, but the report is he said fuck him, and that to me is exactly what he said without saying it, by just basically like, yeah, I'm fucking Vince McMahon, whatever, like essentially. It's the equivalent of Ric Flair at his last match making sure in his promo to say the things you heard about me are true. He didn't need to say that in his promo, but he decided,
he didn't have to.
The Ric Flair character person decided to do that, and I feel like the character, when Vince McMahon created the character of Mr. McMahon, like he had a hard time separating.
Mr.
Yeah,
McMahon.
He had a hard time separating the art from the artist because they became, he became that person, and it's just crazy because imagine you're like new to wrestling in like the last, I don't even 5-10 years, whatever, and you read it, you're reading your normal stories, you're watching NXT, and you hear about this whole Mandy Rose thing, and you're like, whoa, that's crazy. They fired her because she was posting like kind of these photos and stuff online. But then in the same week, you're watching this 2-hour doc about all the crazy, horrific shit Vince McMahon did, and yet like that, he's fine. Like you're like, this is baffling. This is so bizarre, and it just feels so like not in a normal world. But I guess that's where the world of wrestling, it is not a normal world. But it's just so crazy, like the spectrum of what is okay. But I mean, it's Vince McMahon is not. I don't think he will be coming back. I still think he'll text Triple H some ideas of what he should do, and I'm sure Triple H goes sure to that one, and then goes absolutely not to some. Like I do think he's still trying to get his paw prints on what's going on. But,
it's the whole. Sorry, go for it.
Sorry. Another thing that really stood out to me in the article was that it's alleged that he has paid over the years over $12 million of hush money. And that really that baffled me from a human perspective, right? Because how bad do you want to be a creep? Like, is it worth $12 million?
$12 million.
And it's wild because, like you said, if you're just a normal, regular, non-wrestling fan person and you're reading all of this and you're watching documentary and all of this, in the back of your mind, you would just naturally go like, this is crazy. There's no way it's true. So, like, what kind of a world do we even live in? Because that's not even playing a beneficial role in the whole story and the whole process, because people are just going to look at this, at us, and just be like, there's no way that's real.
I mean, it's a whole money and power thing. Like, you get that rich and powerful, like, you get your kicks in different way. You're not a normal person at that point, you know? It's fucked. And for me, that is the damning evidence. The fact you've paid that, the fact there is proof that this has been paid, it's admission to guilt, isn't it? Because why else would you be paying? Like, what are you paying for otherwise? Like, it's very much an admission to guilt. But I get that some people, there's that sausage analogy, you know, like people like sausages but don't really want to know what's actually in them. And there are some people that there are people that find out and then they're like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna go vegan or whatever. That's kind of fucked. Or there are people who are like, you know what, I'd rather not know. I enjoy them. They're great at breakfast. And people like wrestling. The world is fucking hard enough as it is, and people have this as an escape. And going back to what you said about having, like, you know, the Twitter people are not real people, like people like us podcasting, talking about it, wanting to know everything. That's what interests us. And we have that thing where we're like, I feel, you watch that Vince doc or any Dark Side doc and you feel, man, I feel just dirty being a wrestling fan. But other people are like, this is what I do to switch off from work. This is what I do to switch off from my problems and do not want to know any of that stuff. And you can somewhat appreciate that. But it's, yeah. Vinnie Mac.
Look, I mean, like, that's exactly why I love wrestling so much. A definite reason is, like, that's my, like you said, we have our, like, if you've been watching for years, and yeah, it's your normal, like, anyone who watches, you know, sports religiously, like, you know, the time of the week, the time of this, and that's your, like, routine and your escape of, you know, reality or whatever. But wrestling, like, is so intricate and more of like an art form and can be funny and all this kind of stuff. But when I think of escaping and how I'm such a big fan of it, the part of me is like, I'm so happy that Vince McMahon is gone, because I haven't enjoyed it the way I had in the past, and that where you then, like, kind of dive more into it. But I don't think we've seen the last of Vince McMahon. But something tells me when I think back to WrestleMania this year, when he took that god-awful stunner, probably the worst stunner in history.
But the way they edited it, though, for the right? Those editors deserve an Oscar. Like, that was great. Brilliant.
Best stunner of all time when you watch the edited version. Yeah. Something tells me he knew that this was his last. I think so.
The McAfee interview, the final match, the stunner from Stone Cold, it felt like he knew. Well, let's move on to our next subject. Someone who kind of left the company around the time of a lot of these reports coming out was Sasha Banks. And there's been a lot of talks with the new regime about if and when she's coming back. You obviously had Survivor Series in Boston. They were teasing a fifth member for War Games. Everything kind of pointed towards maybe a Sasha Banks return. But then reports have come out that she's struck a deal with New Japan on one of the biggest deals ever. And some people, Chris Jericho disputes it, but a bigger deal than Jericho of $100,000 per show. And the talk is that, she wanted the same money in WWE as Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair, and WWE were way off with their number, which to me is just it's just baffling. Like, Xenia, I'm like a massive Sasha Banks fan, so I'm gonna say give her all the money that she wants. I think she's a huge star, but what do you make of all this?
I also say give her all the money that she wants. And I am not even that much, well, I wouldn't say I'm not that much of a fan, but I'm not, explicitly a Sasha Banks fan. But I do think that she's exactly on the same level as Charlotte, exactly on the same level as whichever other big superstar in WWE. But then it comes to, how do you judge this? Do you judge this from the inside, or do you judge this from the outside? Because from the inside, she might not be as decorated, she might not appear in main events as often as, say, Charlotte does. But then from the outside, it sounds like blasphemy when I say it, but she's so much bigger than Charlotte. She's so much more recognizable to, again, a normal person, a non-wrestling fan, the mainstream viewer. She was in the Star Wars franchise. She's at all these events, she's at all these premieres, she's hanging out with all the celebrities. And it might sound like the person just having fun, which she is, but it's also about this presentation that she has with the public. She is a star, she has the star quality. And excuse my very flat analogy, but Charlotte Flair is John Cena in this scenario, and Sasha Banks is The Rock. And maybe to us, wrestling fans, John Cena is the ultimate, the guy, the legend. But if you were to, like, wrestling fans on the internet usually like to say that, like, if you were to ask someone at the grocery store, if you were to ask someone walking down the street, The Rock is more recognizable. And I do think Sasha Banks is on that path. And for some time after she left, a lot of people thought that she'd be leaving wrestling behind completely and just going the movie star route, which I do think she's bound to do that eventually. But while she's still young, she's still in her physical, athletic prime, it's only fair that she wrestles more. And with New Japan especially, I've been talking for years, again, love New Japan, this is the disclaimer, but I've been talking for years about how horribly underrepresented women are in that company. Like, we've only had, like, what, 2 female managers throughout these past, like, at least 5 years, and there's no women's division at all. And some people like to excuse it with, oh, that's just the format of the company, or that's just their culture. But I personally do feel like in the 21st century, in the year 2022, it's impossible for a modern, marketable, successful wrestling company to keep running without a women's division. That's just unthinkable to me. So Sasha striking that deal and bringing more eyes to the product is just perfect for them and for her. So good for her.
Yeah, she's got to be like a perfect like link there. Like you mentioned, that she's done like the stuff outside WWE. She's on the path to be the one that people recognize outside of wrestling. Like, she's featured in so many different things. She's gonna be in more movies, more Star Wars, I'm sure. So like, just continuing on that path. Basically, the stories of her saying like, well, I want, F you, pay me, is essentially what it is. Doing this, I think it's like almost like a perfect pairing, because you're right, New Japan hasn't had that. I mean, God bless the bunny in New Japan, but like they need to do a lot more. And this kind of bringing that in, right, kind of at the right moment, the right time, could be like big deal for them. And being, kind of smarky wrestling fans, if you follow Sasha, it seems like she's someone who, yeah, she loves Hollywood and all that stuff, but like loves wrestling and would post about, Japanese wrestling and Stardom and all that stuff, and goes overseas and trains and stuff like that. So the fan, like the wrestling fan, is like, okay, like this should be nuts. Book her as, a main event in like the Tokyo Dome in the future. Like, that is the perfect star that you could like create this whole like universe and gain so many more fans and stuff. The fact that she like walked out of WWE, as we're all like kind of assuming, and it leads to believe that way, makes her like almost like the then like the CM Punk equivalent, because now she's like the anti-hero, the rebel that we like want to like get behind. But then like she does have the like star power of like, not she's not The Rock or John Cena yet, but again, like she's on the right path. I would say, just because she was amazing in The Mandalorian, and she is better than Charlotte, in my opinion. I like her matches. You know, the fact that you had that match like just maybe over a year ago with Bianca and Sasha making headlines everywhere, ESPN talking about it, and they still managed to like fumble Sasha Banks in the last year or so. I know you're giving the spotlight to other people and stuff, but it does baffle me that there wasn't a way to bring her back, especially with Triple H running the ship. But as a fan, I'm so excited to see where they can go with this, whether we get the matches with Kyrie or Julia over there, like all these
Mayu, yeah,
there's so many like different avenues, right? And for someone who doesn't know any of these people or doesn't watch New Japan, like it's a great reason for you to check in, and kind of comparing it to the Chris Jericho going over there, like that did fucking business. People watch New Japan now because of that, right? Like it'll do the same thing, but now with like women, they haven't had women, and now like Sasha Banks kind of leading that charge. Like I think that's pretty rad, and I'm like strapped in as a fan, just like can't wait to watch and consume all of it. And again, I hope I hope one day she does like main event like a Tokyo Dome or something like that, because I see her having the ability to do so.
I want to bring up something Frank in the chat's put, which is that Sasha tends to walk off when she doesn't get her way. I think that's a big reason why they're not willing to overpay. Becky has not done those things too, to be fair to her, which kind of brings that. It's been resurfacing things Sasha said in the Austin podcast about knowing your worth, and she's had a time of being grateful and happy to be there. And it's again these contradictory things. You hear Vince McMahon talking about reaching for the brass ring, but then whenever you see someone try to do that, it feels like they're kind of held down. I think it was a statement. I mean, as you said, Becky had that match with Sasha. Many people point to Sasha had the match with Bianca, and many people point to the Brooklyn match with Bayley as a huge kind of moment in women's wrestling. Yep. Interesting, both these matches I'm talking about do not involve Becky Lynch or Charlotte Flair. And that's not to undermine their accomplishments, but just these massive moments Sasha Banks had with wrestling and raising the game for women's wrestling, then goes off and does like The Mandalorian, which is not promoted by WWE at all, which was weird. I think I can't see Sasha doing the AEW thing, because when I think about matches she'd have, I can't say there are many dream matches really, but I can totally see Sasha over the next year raising her stock, having those dream matches in New Japan, in Stardom, with Kyrie, with Julia, with Syuri, with Mayu, and maybe doing more Hollywood, and then coming back to, one of those sweet part-time deals where she's doing those main events and stuff. I do see her back in WWE eventually, and I do see her being paid a lot more down the line. It's just baffling how you can't see that worth. You're going to bring back a Karrion Kross and a Dexter Lumis, but you're not going to open your checkbook for a Sasha Banks.
Don't send a Karrion Kross or Dexter Lumis on my watch. Those are the favorites.
Okay.
Everyone likes them. Anyway, no, I think the problem that WWE has with Sasha is at its core kind of the CM Punk problem, but like not as exacerbated, but still WWE just doesn't do with big personalities in a way. And, might be contradictory again, because obviously all the big stars are by default big personalities, but it's different being a big personality on the ring for the company and being a big personality for yourself and, like you said, for her own worth, for her own career. Because from what I've seen, again, from documentaries, from reports, say John Cena is the WWE guy, just through and through, the kind of person that they're looking for. Perfectly professional, again, knows his worth, but is doing everything for the company, for the boss even. Undertaker, through and through, WWE guy. Might be this big personality with the fans, might be this big personality with the media, might be this imposing character, but the documentary that for some godforsaken reason decided to humanize him, it's something to watch. Like the way that he interacts with Vince specifically, something gonna change everyone's opinion. Like if you haven't seen any of the people who are watching, check it out because it's gonna change your opinion on the Undertaker forever. And Sasha Banks is not the Undertaker at all. She knows what she wants, and she knows that her interests go above the company interests, which honestly, being again on paper a contractor, not even an employee, that is exactly how that should be treated. And she's, in her own right, is somewhere where she's appreciated, somewhere where she's getting paid enough money, and somewhere where she gets maybe more creative freedom. So honestly, I do not get why some people are trying to make the, again, anti-hero out of her and trying to shame her for choosing her own career over WWE. She's definitely already at the level where she doesn't have to cling to WWE. So to me, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. I don't understand. I do see some fans like, oh, how could she, the mouth that fed her, right? Like, how could you do that? But it's like, I don't know. Like, the world's different. That's the world of wrestling. And now with all these different avenues, like, why wouldn't you? I agree with Davie. I do see her going back to WWE one day. And when you do the, Sasha v. Charlotte, or one day we'll get the WrestleMania 4 Horsewomen 4-way or tag match or something, like it'll be a huge big moment. But right now, like, yeah, she's gonna break barriers and do things that no women have kind of done in wrestling so far. With some of the stuff that is speculated, just showing up at the Tokyo Dome on the 4th could be awesome. It could be huge and gaining a lot new eyes to that product and stuff. What name will she go by though? Because we were talking about what, Sasha Monet or Mercedes Bernardo, like her shoot name. What, Sasha Banks sounds so cool. The Boss. I don't know if you could necessarily use that.
I mean, she did trademark those, the ones that you mentioned. So surely it's gonna be one of those.
Okay, so it has to be one of those.
I feel like we're just, as wrestling fans, again, we're just so enclosed, so isolated in our information bubble, and with the whole animosity for like, oh, how could she leave the company that gave her so much? I always like to, again, make an analogy to real life normal jobs, like, oh, you used to deliver for Domino's, how dare you work for Pizza Hut now? That's just insane. That's just, no one would say that in their right mind. It's business, as cold-hearted as it sounds, but it is.
On a brighter note, before we move on, what are the kind of dream matches you're wanting from Sasha before in the next year while she's out of WWE?
I mean, people are speculating that she could be Saraya's partner for the tag match with Britt Baker. I wouldn't say that's necessarily dream match grade, but that's something that could be exciting. I don't think she is going to appear, and I do think that if it's not her, they should announce it before the show, because people will just hate anyone who shows up instead of her.
Yeah,
and I do feel like with the whole walkout and with how much attention has been on Sasha, I feel like Trinity, Naomi, got a little lost in the shuffle.
Yeah. But
I am so excited to see her somewhere. I'm excited to see her wrestle. She was one of my favorite women's wrestlers in WWE. And if she were to be Saraya's partner, that would be awesome. I kind of didn't answer the question at all.
No, it's okay.
My train of thought went.
No, but you're right. Like Naomi getting kind of lost. I see people speculating like, hey, maybe she'll just go back to WWE because being ties with the Usos and the whole bloodline. That's kind of an easy like thing you could go to, considering they don't have any like women in their crew yet, and they that is a possibility that could happen. But I don't know if she would does she show up with Sasha at these at some of these events? Like, you're going to see Naomi and Sasha Banks front row at Wrestle Kingdom on January 4th, like the takeover spot or something. But she is someone who, like, before like the WWE, before she left with Sasha, she was someone who like was greatly improving. And I thought since especially like obviously tagging with Sasha, but even like a year or so before that, I felt like Naomi was going on another like level and completely finding herself and evolving as not just a performer, but also like wrestling and like ability and matches and stuff. Like she was becoming a pretty prominent character, I found. So like her stock is still, it's not Sasha Banks, but she's still coming back. Could be a pretty big deal if she just were to come back on her own.
And on the one hand, it's beautiful how they've stuck together through this. Like they walked out together and they stayed together. Like they're on this new venture together, I guess, which has been really, beautiful to watch. But also, on the other hand, I really wouldn't want Trinity to become Sasha's shadow. I do think, like you said, she has a lot of value on her own as a performer. And like I said, I personally would really like to see her in AEW.
I think I'd way prefer that to Sasha going to AEW. I think Trinity being Soraya's partner, I think that would be a surprise that people would like. It would get the rumor mill circulating even more. But I think she'd be a good fit there for sure. And have Sasha do her New Japan stuff.
I wouldn't mind Sasha versus Jamie Hayter. That is definitely a match that comes to mind. But one day.
Well, Zania, it's been... Oh, excuse me. It's been lovely having you on here. Thank you. We'd love to have you on again. This was great.
Absolutely. Yeah, please let the people know where they can find you and anything you want to plug. Please tell the people, because it was great to have you on, and we would definitely like to have you on again in the future, because you brought some excellent points to these subjects. I don't think we could have toppled some of those things without you today. So thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun, and I can be found on YouTube, youtube.com/ZeniaDidThat, XENIA, that is, and my ad on all the social media. Twitter, Instagram is also at ZeniaDidThat. You can find my merch at Teespring. I have all the links in all of my bios and all of my social media. I recently dropped some new merch, and I've been in the process of slowly revamping the channel. The newest video is actually finally dropping next week, and the whole new design. I have a new trailer coming up, so a lot of exciting things, a lot of new formats, new level of quality to the channel. So subscribe, because every subscriber matters, and stay tuned.
Amazing.
Excellent. Thank you.
I just want to put you on the spot quickly, because it is the end of the year and we're working frantically on our best of the year list. Do you have a favorite match of 2022?
Oof, oh my god. I think I might jump into something that's recent, just because it's so fresh. But the double dog collar match, FTR with the First Coast just now, was so good that I can barely think of anything else. So let's make this my answer.
Awesome. It's going to be up there for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Take care. Nice to see you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
All right.
All right.
We're now going to move on to some AEW Dynamite. We had Winter is Coming this year. The third annual Winter is Coming from Texas, main evented by MJF defending his AEW title and Diamond Ring against Ricky Starks.
Yeah, Winter is Coming. Winter has came. I thought it was a pretty good show. I thought also, the going into it before the big Ricky Starks promo last week, I was like, okay, it's clearly just an MJF win, which obviously it is, but I thought Ricky delivered in that promo that it made me really want to watch the match. But then I also thought that Ricky stepped it up. I think MJF in the past 2 years has just become not only just the character, but the wrestling has definitely been there. And I thought these two, who I imagine are probably pretty friendly in real life, just got to go out there and kind of really put on a pretty sweet main event match, and having some hope spots towards the end was pretty funny. I just whenever the commentary made it sound like MJF could lose the ring and the world title. He could lose the ring. I was like, do we need the ring thing really? But I still really enjoyed it. But yeah, what'd you think of that match?
I loved it. I'm a big fan of Ricky Starks. I think the goal of this match, I think we all knew going into this, there was no hope Ricky Starks was winning this. But if Ricky Starks could leave this match a bigger star than he came into it, it's achieved what it set out to achieve. And I absolutely think it did that. I think it made you excited. I saw so many people going, oh, these two need to be career rivals. You can run this back a year from now, 2 years from now. And I think that's great. And one day, Ricky Starks could have his number. They protected him. They had the low blow finish. But yeah, I think his promos, like his promo last week, his promo backstage this week, were absolutely fantastic. And like MJF, I think he can back it up in the ring as well. MJF for me, I've always loved his matches when he's against kind of people more like similar size to him and doing the, you know, the kind of actual like the wrestling, like with Davie, with Jungle Boy, with Ricky Starks here, with just the grappling and his he has like a real, he always starts his match a real kind of old school way, which I really like before it breaks down and starts going into the, you know, more the craziness or the brawling or the cheating or whatever. I thought this was a really solid main event. You put it up against the last 2 years when you've had, you know, huge main eventers, Omega, Moxley, you had Danielson, Hangman last year. This one on paper does look a lot weaker, but I thought it lived up to the billing.
Yeah, I thought the whole show was pretty fun. I'm definitely invested in the best of 7 series with the Elite. I'm a huge Kenny and Bucks mark, but also the Death Triangle are some of my favorites. So again, could definitely watch this match over and over. Even when the bell rang, I'm like, okay, I've seen this match like 4 times now in the past few weeks. What the fuck could they possibly do to up the ante? And then I watched the match. I'm like, holy crap, these guys are not human with some of the spots they come up with. And then like the whole sports NBA theme, the round ball rock and stuff, like them promoting it like a sports series is pretty funny to me, and the way they're handling it is pretty great. So can't wait. And then we kind of suggested that the gimmicks are coming into play because there's going to be a no DQ,
falls count anywhere, and then a ladder.
Yeah, which we kind of assumed would be that anyway. So yeah, I'm fully strapped in for all of that. After that, though, I kind of hope we get maybe into some Kenny Omega singles seriousness, because I am more than hyped for the Will Ospreay match come Wrestle Kingdom, and I'm sure after watching that we're going to be like, all right, like Omega, let's put you in. I'm not saying, you know, challenge MJF or anything, but get into some blood feud with someone, because I do enjoy his solo work, and the Bucks as a tag team as well, but maybe keep him as a trio or for now, I don't know, but been loving that series. Something else from the show.
Sorry, can I talk about the match?
Sorry.
I didn't like the match this week, but I appreciate what it was doing. It was definitely the weakest of the 4, but I do like up to now each match is very different. You have the blow away match at Full Gear. The second one is Chicago with the anti-elite vibe. The third one, what was the gimmick? That one, it's more hammer stuff, and then this one with Nick Jackson's shoe. Like you can the ankle, you can definitely tell each match apart, which is it's good. And I think moving forward now you've got the stipulations, it's gonna really add to it. Could you see? I'm trying to think. Is the last match before the Tokyo Dome?
Well, no. So they're taking a break. I
mean,
this is all, you know, if the Elite can But there's a break because the 4th is the Wednesday when that match is happening. So.
I do feel maybe because I found it weird with Tony Schiavone going, and if it goes to a 7th match, which inevitably it's going to happen, it'll be a ladder match. I think maybe there could have been some way you could have had Ospreay cost the Elite one of these matches. To kind of add something. I know it means flying Ospreay over here, but to add something going into that singles match, I do see Death Triangle ultimately taking this, because I think Kenny does need to move more into singles and have Bucks more in the tag division, and really cement Death Triangle as these champions. But I've been enjoying it, but this was definitely a weaker one. But I'm sure no DQ this Wednesday is going to be absolutely nuts.
Yeah, I mean, whoever wins this series is inevitably going to be fighting the House of Black.
Yeah,
you would imagine.
I would assume
that's the next feud. So I mean, it goes either way. I would like to see either of those matches. So I think the Elite take it now, just because you could have them lose to House of Black. Something else that was pretty funny or not funny, but pretty entertaining. Well, funny as well, was the whole Action Andretti versus Chris Jericho. So by all means, someone I've never heard of, unless you listen to Shot in the Dark or you watch AEW Dark. Action Andretti, this young kid who was facing Chris Jericho in a match, and watching this match, I was totally getting into it, and as were the crowd. I mean, this crowd was more into this than pretty much anything else on this show. They were eating it up, and then having this kid beat Chris Jericho clean live on TV was a great decision, I thought, and was just a whole like brand new like story we can go off into, but very John Cena, Kurt Angle vibes here for me. I love this.
Except Kurt Angle loses at the end of it.
Kurt beat John, right?
Yeah, it was more 1, 2, 3 Kid, Scott Hall, like that kind of.
Yeah,
thing.
I guess so. Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed this. I thought it was great. Like Jericho putting this guy over. The one question is, how does Tony Khan follow up? I'll bring up again the likes of Miro, these big stars he actually has that he doesn't do anything with. You would assume if Jericho's putting this guy over, he's going to be pushing for this guy to, look, you better make something of this kid. But I wouldn't be surprised if in a couple of weeks we're not seeing Action Andretti on TV that much. I think they'll follow up with probably a promo or something this week. But yeah, it's just the AEW booking that they have so many guys there. They've got so many big stars there that they just don't use. They forget they have. Where is Action Andretti fitting into all this? But in the short term of just watching Dynamite and seeing this fantastic match with this great upset, I fucking loved it.
Yeah, I think we're gonna get a rematch, which Jericho's gonna give more tantrums and stuff like that. It's easily like a continued feud down the line, but it's easily like what happens after this. You would imagine that Jericho beats him and this guy just ends up being in the fucking Jericho appreciation lads or whatever. But at this route, I find it a quick cut and move for Jericho, like instantly moving on to something else. I think it could be a fun TV program going forward, because I really loved it, and the crowd really helped it, man. They were so behind this guy, from chanting jobber to him to then like just losing their shit when he beat Jericho. It was pretty fun. Definitely gave me a good like Dynamite moment vibe.
Is this going to be another 9-month feud for Jericho then?
Yeah, a feud for the next 3 years. That's what I'm saying. It's going to end with him joining him or something like that, because I do think they kind of messed up whatever was going on with Daniel Garcia and that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I'm finally getting what I wanted, which was way less Ring of Honor. Like, let's move away from Ring of Honor. Let's focus on this show and not every other champion and TV champion and pure this and all this like crap. Like, let's focus on that, because I was assuming Garcia was going to face Jericho for the title and get it from him, but
it seems like they're back on track with that though. Now they've got Garcia shadowing Sammy, which definitely puts the focus back on Garcia and being kind of pissed off in this group that he's got to shadow his elder Sammy Guevara. So I do feel like that backstage segment this week kind of gave me hope for Garcia. That they're clearly going forward with the storyline with him now, and it's probably starting with the Sammy feud before ultimately you would hope it ends with the Jericho feud.
Yeah, Jericho, you feud with Jericho and you feud with him for the whole year. I just felt like this whole year was just that BCC thing. I just want that to completely be over with.
They said it would be over, and then I'm watching Rampage and it's Moxley versus Guevara.
Never over.
It's never over, this shit.
Yeah, it's the never-ending story. What else was there on Dynamite? Oh, Jungle Hook is something I'm definitely invested in. I wasn't quite sure why Hook got a huge reaction, because he's like, where has this guy been for a while? So kind of into that. I like how they're calling him Jungle Boy Jack Perry. They're definitely focusing on that kind of evolution of him. But I'm into him teaming with Hook for a little bit.
I mean, it's
Hook t-shirts.
Well, keeping him busy until Christian's
exactly, yeah,
ready again. Yeah, it is a bit of a shame, because you've tried to break him out as a singles guy, and now putting him back in a tag. I wonder if this is going to be a short-lived thing and go for like a little feud between these two. I feel they're just trying to find ways to keep Jungle Boy busy, but Hook's been not doing a great deal recently. So if it means both of them are going to be featured a bit more, I can't say it's something that particularly excites me personally.
It's like some good mid-card kind of stuff to keep these guys busy. So like, sure, I'm sure we can get some good matches out of it. I like Jungle Boy, so I'm definitely willing to give it a shot. But seeing them team up could be pretty good. Because Hook, yeah, I feel like Hook hasn't been wrestling a whole lot, at least like on Dynamite. So Dynamite really never was Hook's show.
No.
He was always the Rampage guy. But yeah. But overall, I really enjoyed Winter is Coming. I thought it had some good stuff and kind of flew by. It's kind of one of their good specials. Like you kind of know every December it's like that Winter is Coming show.
I do love Joe calling himself the king of television, because he's got essentially the 2 TV titles,
right.
And it feels like that is back on track now to Wardlow Joe, which because that felt messy because they were going a certain way. It felt like going Wardlow Hobbs, and then it was Wardlow Joe, and then hi, I'm Juice Robinson, and so we're back a bit more focused now, and maybe potentially unify those titles, but I don't know. TK likes TV, belts.
There's like the Ring of Honor thing is definitely phasing out for a little bit. Like I think he's taking the L and just doing the streaming. What is it? The King of Roku is basically Joe here. Like take the streaming stuff and do that and cool. But the TNT title like should definitely be the focus. And yeah, go to Wardlow versus Joe like right away. Next week's show looks pretty stacked with Jamie Hayter versus Sheeta, FTR and the Guns, and then the no DQ 6-man tag, which should be pretty crazy. So next week's show sounds pretty great because Sheeta and Hayter, will put on a pretty sweet match. So can't wait for that.
And Dax wrestling with a broken ass.
His ass looks bad from that spot, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, his ass is beat, and he's gonna face an ass boy, both of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're gonna be wrestling on the Tokyo Dome too. Not the match everyone kind of thought we were getting, but
Goto and Yoshihashi. Hashi.
Yeah, it should still be pretty good. So
yeah. Well, sticking with AEW, there was a report that came out earlier this week saying that they're going to be changing the look of AEW come January. AEW's kind of had this same look since it started. So yeah, thoughts on that? What would you like to see moving forward? Yeah.
Lots of paint splatter. Paint splatter on everything.
More paint splatter.
No, I don't know. What are the looks? I know that they have, I'm blanking on his name, but the producer guy who's coming in there, he's done years with WWE, so I'm imagining that maybe that's some of his ideas coming in. But yeah, I don't know. What would you do to kind of change things up a bit? I know I love the tunnels, so don't get rid of the tunnels. I like the good guy tunnels and the bad guy tunnels. I like the I don't know. I kind of like the look, but I mean it's been 3 years, so I guess. Changes.
I'd hope they'd start changing the look of pay-per-views and maybe these specials like Winter is Coming, have it look different, have it feel different. Obviously you're taping Rampage at the same time, so there's only so much you can do to differentiate that. Maybe change the theme songs up a bit, change the graphics. I think change is often good. You run the risk of just being a bit stale. Like WWE kind of does it every 2-3 years. They do a little revamp. I'm with you. The tunnels work. The tunnels are cool. I mean, the Cody Vader isn't really used anymore, so maybe
it's the power lift now.
Do away with that. It is. It's Hobbs, isn't it? But yeah, I'm thinking maybe a new theme. Certainly a new theme for Rampage wouldn't be a bad idea.
I like both themes, but like that always is an easy way to instantly like change things over. Like, okay, just have a new theme song and new graphics and stuff. Like, I feel like maybe like they're going towards like this whole sports kind of theme. Like, how like I feel like SmackDown on Fox kind of like makes it seem a bit more like modern sports. I feel like maybe if they go that route in AEW, they could get some cool stuff going. I like the colors and stuff that they use already, but I don't know. I like maybe the way they like light things, like the crowd or something. That could be a change as well. But yeah, something they should change is their T-shirts, because every time I want to support this show I watch every week by week, I don't like a lot of their stuff that they sell. Like a lot of their shirts look so similar, or just says the name of like what it is, and it's like what happened to like creative like merchandising, because I find like they're definitely lacking in. I'm sure they're making shit tons of money on it, but like I'm looking at it like there's so many different things that I'm not even a graphic designer that pop into my head, like why wouldn't you do that, or why would you do that with that instead? But that's just nitpicking.
And yeah, definitely better merch selection at the stands when you go, because it's
shows.
So limited. Yeah. Jake in the chat reminds us it's Mike Mansouri is the producer.
Mike Mansouri.
And Cool Gang Big B saying he's sick of that damn set. So definitely B Detroit is looking forward to a bit of a change there. Well, shall we move over to a bit of WWE?
Yes.
Well, at the end of SmackDown this week, John Cena made a return via video. It was promoted that he's going to be on WWE in a couple of weeks. Via satellite. But we set up, we were going to have this big, maybe Sami Zayn becoming Sami Uso and being inducted into the bloodline. But Roman's still unsure about his friendship with KO. So Heyman suggests that Roman and Sami team to take on Owens and a partner of his choice. And Cena basically reveals at the end that he hasn't wrestled this year. And it's Kevin Owens, who's been on John Cena's cage match, who's gone, no Cena matches this year. Better text him. And follows up with peach emoji, Santa emoji, eggplant emoji. But yeah, that's a huge match taking place on the last SmackDown of the year. John Cena and Kevin Owens versus Roman Reigns and Sami Zayn. That's a massive match for TV, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's crazy that John Cena hasn't wrestled this year, but I mean, if you watch anything else on TV, his voice is in like all these different commercials. I mean, he's filming things, TV, movies, all that stuff. So like the guy is definitely like moved past WWE, but I didn't realize he didn't wrestle this year. I was just like, oh yeah, true. So it's kind of a nice little cheat hack way to still get your one match in of the year, but it's almost like you could see it like, let's just bring in John Cena, but at the same time, it totally works with what's going on with KO needing a partner to face Sami and Roman. Like it's kind of perfect with the history with like all four of them, right? So yeah, I'm totally into this. I'm past the like John Cena is like the legend status now, right? Like he comes in and all that stuff, but to have the match on like the SmackDown, before the end of the year is a very smart move, and I'm sure a lot of people will tune in to watch that.
I think it's very rare that WWE can promote a match that actually gets me excited, because we see so much of rematches, the same thing over and over again, especially a random tag match. But this sounds pretty big. I mean, you got Roman and John Cena, who are just huge stars that, without having to do anything, that is like a spectacle, those two. But we also know, I think Kevin Owens brings out some of Roman's best work. I think they have very good chemistry. We've seen, granted, it was like 2015, but John Cena and Kevin Owens have great chemistry. Obviously, they're not wrestling against each other, but they've got good chemistry. And then Owens and Zayn, like, need I say more? Like, I think it's going to be a really fun match. And I'm seeing the jokes of USA Network going like, all right, what are we getting? Because do you remember there was that time a couple of years ago where I think SmackDown were like, we're doing a Hell in a Cell match? And USA were like, what the fuck? We're doing a Hell in a Cell match. So I wonder what they get in return. But I think that's a pretty massive match. And I'm that is one I will tune into. I like the sound of that a lot.
Raw will get Goldberg.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, Cena coming back is pretty cool. I imagine he wrestles at WrestleMania. It's in Hollywood. Easily, I mean, the match I think was rumored is Logan Paul, but he's hurt, so I don't know if he'd be ready to do that match in time by WrestleMania. But Cena versus Austin Theory could also be the WrestleMania match, but I see him wrestling on that show as well down the line. But I don't see him wrestling anytime before that.
No,
this match.
Cena Austin Theory makes, like, it's not very attractive, but it kind of makes sense in a way, especially with Theory being the US champion right now, like Cena being Mr. America and all that. So you don't see Cena potentially in the Rumble at all?
That would be a cool, fun spot. He would win it if
well, I mean, that's how you could set up his opponent, isn't it? You could have him in the Rumble and have whoever his Mania match is take him out. But yeah, it's funny because for years we're like, oh, fuck John Cena, exactly. And then he comes back and I'm like, oh, I've missed you. Come on, come home.
I'm feeling the same way, and it's also maybe that's why we're not watching him wrestle all the time. And now again, he's past, like he's legend status, so it's cool when he comes back and kind of intertwine with the storylines, and he definitely would fit in with the Roman bloodline stuff. And I know Kevin Owens' son, biggest John Cena fan, so
yeah,
you know that his kid's gonna be watching that match with a huge smile on his face.
Well, also on SmackDown this week, not only did we have like a re-debut of Cena, we had the debut of Uncle Howdy.
I'm a leprechaun. Yeah, I thought this was just the dude. I thought this was Warwick Davis in the leprechaun outfit, and then realized no, it's probably Bo Dallas in a leprechaun outfit. This is interesting. Remember when everyone was excited about Bray Wyatt coming back?
And this, I feel there was all that stuff on Twitter as well, like hyping this up. Like you better not miss SmackDown this week.
Don't miss it.
Because I assume the thing that people have been like theorizing, like, oh, is Uncle Howdy actually just Bray, like one of his split personalities, and it's him in a different mask? So this week we kind of confirmed, no, Uncle Howdy is a different person. But it looks so ridiculous. And you mentioned leprechaun, but it not only is it the hat and like the coat, but he comes out and he's like howdy doody, like tips his hat. I know the Grapple lads have said it reminds him of them of Bo Selector, which was this UK comedy show where basically is mocking all these celebrities, but they'd have these big like fake rubber masks of all the celebrities they're pretending to be, and it just looks like this is Bo Selector Barry Windham dressed as a leprechaun. Like it's so laughable, and it's such a shame because this Bray thing has just died for me so quickly. And and like you did it again. Like we were there at that SummerSlam when The Fiend came out, and we were like, oh boy, this is awesome. And then we had, when did he debut this year? It was
just recently, Survivor Series, no? Or no?
It was the one before, whatever that was. Extreme Rules or something, yeah. Him coming out and being like, oh, this is fantastic. And it was then interesting him kind of playing like this more normal person, and then we're into all this howdy doody shit, and LA Knight's somehow involved, which I like LA Knight. I'm a fan of LA Knight. It just feels a weird fit for this first feud as well. They're gonna have to really, I mean, they're gonna have to wrestle soon. You're gonna have to reveal who this guy is, but I think I think they really dropped the ball on this, and I can't say I'm too interested anymore. But it was pretty fucking funny to see.
It was the tip of the hat that made me laugh, because if you listen to our podcast every St. Patrick's Day, we've been reviewing the Leprechaun movies. So it was fresh in my head from those reviews a few months back, where I'm like, this looks exactly like that character. So it instantly is not the way I thought it was going. I don't care at all. Actually, I think LA Knight has the most to gain from this now, because everyone's just going, hey, at least he's good. So I see him coming out of this kind of unfazed, which was not the case with Seth Rollins and The Fiend a few years ago. So hopefully this doesn't ruin LA Knight's thing. But so far, I don't care about any of this Bray Wyatt stuff whatsoever now. I thought he was going to come in here and wrestle. That hasn't been the case. He comes out and talks and stands there, and his family, like, is this them doing the thing where now we think it's someone else, but really it's just going to end up being Bray under the mask anyways? Like, is this just them tricking us?
Like a body double hocus pocus thing?
Yeah, exactly. Or is it Bo Dallas? Is it Alexa Bliss? Is it, like...
Bo makes sense, but I can't say I'm overly excited about seeing Bo either. Care. Like, I know the family connection and stuff, but, like, Bo's wrestling has never lit the world on fire. Well...
It sucks.
Someone who's wrestling, in my opinion, does light the world on fire is Gunther, and who had a hell of a match on SmackDown this week against Ricochet. I don't know if you've had a chance to watch that yet.
Hey, Yeah, that match was awesome. I think anytime I've been watching SmackDown and Gunther's been on it, he has been just awesome. And, watching him for the past few years, whether we watched him in NXT or on the indies and stuff, we all loved Walter. And look at him now. He's shining. I love that match with Ricochet. I love the match with Rey Mysterio a few weeks ago as well. I've just been loving everything with this character. I know we have the bloodline, Roman being the world champion, that whole thing, but Gunther with the IC title is like something we could only fantasy book in our video games a few years ago, and we're watching it like unfold. So they're
presenting him as he should be presented, which sounds so obvious, but we've watched this product for so long where they get it wrong, where they
would butcher him,
where you get a home run baby face like Sami Zayn in NXT, and you're like, oh no, you're a bad guy. We've seen them go wrong so many times, but they've treated Gunther so well. This IC run's been great. I love the match with Ricochet, and rumor has it WrestleMania will be Gunther versus Brock.
Take all my money. I mean, that's crazy. The rumor going is it's Brock that is the one who wants the match with Gunther, which Brock is usually the person who yes or no's the match with you. And I mean, in the past, he's definitely had some matches where you could tell he did not want to have that match. But fast forward, maybe Brock's a bit of a different guy now, but that is an obvious dream match scenario there where you have these two monsters, really. I mean, Brock is bigger. Brock is a lot bigger and a lot more jacked. Brock has muscles where we don't even have places on our bodies. But Gunther has gotten in incredible shape and is still giant. But I couldn't even imagine how that match would go down, because you'd have Brock throwing him around, you'd have him getting chopped. I don't even know, but my interest for that match now is at 100%. Please book that.
I just hope they break the mold with this one. We've seen. I think Brock can be incredible. I think he can still be a great wrestler. I think his selling is very underrated. I think he's very good, but they've had this formula with him for so long now. I remember we went to a bar to watch Great Balls of Fire all that time ago when it was Brock versus Joe, which sounded awesome. And then, we're getting a Brock match. We're getting suplex, F5, 1, 2, 3, and a little hope spot in there at some point for Joe. I hope they completely break this mold. I don't want to see a barricade spot. I don't want to see spammed finishers. I don't want to see all the tropes. I want these to be presented as equals, two top heavyweights going at it, having a Gunther match rather than a Brock match. And if they do that, I think it could be something really special. Do you see Gunther losing the IC title before then and it being a non-title, or you see it for Brock going for a title he's never held before, perhaps?
That's true. That is an angle that you could have, right? Brock could come back and have a match, and then the story could be I came back and everyone's just talking about how this guy's on a run. Well, I could beat that guy, and I've never held that title, so fuck it, fight me. And that could easily be the story to set up for it. But either way, title or non-title, I think that match would be great. I would just hope so badly that Gunther goes over.
Me too.
Because that would elevate him.
It would elevate him so much.
Next level, right?
And would make him then a viable contender for, say, a Roman or whoever.
Exactly. Brock is someone that's he is a mixed bag, because I do think he's still got it in him. I think he is one of the best, but in certain matches he's definitely let me down, and it seems like sometimes it's they just do the formula Brock match, like you said, suplexes, the spots in the crowd areas and stuff. No, just go out there and actually wrestle and let Gunther chop you and you club him back. Brock is known for giving people receipts, so I would full expect some hard way blood in this match coming from their chests and their mouths and all sorts of stuff. But that is definite a great dream match. If they don't go that route, I don't know what other big match you could do for Gunther for the IC title.
I think you could do Brock. Sheamus again, and you could maybe give Sheamus the title at that point. Part of me wonders if, because they're teasing Braun and Gunther, which I'm not a Braun guy, but maybe Gunther could bring something out of him we haven't seen. But I wouldn't put it past them putting the IC title on Braun and having the whatever feud Gunther and Brock is being not for a title, because I don't know if Brock would be like, why am I wrestling for the IC title? I don't know.
Yeah. There's a few other routes. Like, hey, if we're talking about Cena possibly wrestling for WrestleMania, I mean, Cena versus Brock would be good. Cena versus Gunther would be good. There's a few different things that you could go that route. Brock versus anyone usually is pretty interesting, just because he's like this once a year kind of wrestler right now. But there's a few different avenues. But I will praise WWE handling Gunther as a character that I am enjoying watching. And us doing Up Next for a long time, following what are their names now? They're his lackeys.
Giovanni Vinci and Ludwig Kaiser.
Yeah, man, I love those guys, and I'm happy that they're finally on TV as well. And while speaking of happy of seeing certain people on TV, my heart just swells when I see Legado del Fantasma just killing it on SmackDown every week as well. Those guys are fantastic. So loving some of the stuff SmackDown is doing. Not so much Raw lately. Definitely still watching that via Twitter clips and post wrestling, but SmackDown's had some pretty fun stuff.
Yeah, Raw hasn't been so hot. I think they're just waiting for Cody at this point. I think Cody will really give Raw a shot in the arm. But also someone who hasn't been around is Matt Riddle, who reports stating that he's currently serving his second wellness policy violation, which has him suspended for 60 days. But there seems to be kind of some conflicting talks, because some are saying that he was suspended and that's why the SummerSlam match was pushed back. But if I remember correctly, he was still on SummerSlam because he did that whole brawl thing with Seth. So, and there's also kind of the dates they're saying he's scheduled to maybe come back doesn't really align with the 60 days. So I don't know if they've maybe changed the wellness policy and been like, hey, we're not going to have, because you fucked up, we're not going to ruin stories, and that's why they did the SummerSlam angle or what. But Matt Riddle apparently suspended for 60 days, and he kind of got given the Jeff Hardy ultimatum, where it's you can either go to rehab or goodbye. And well, apparently he's kind of in rehab right now.
Yeah, definitely conflicting stuff. But I mean, the guy has had personal stuff kind of aired out a lot over the past year, especially. And if it's involving rehab and him getting maybe possibly help for addiction problems or something, then I see that as definite a positive. And I mean, being written off TV is something we've seen for sure in a lot of wrestling. It's just, again, kind of interesting where I don't think I'm alone here, where a lot of fans were like, oh, so the guys who get popped for drugs or DUIs or that stuff is just another slap on the wrist and a fine, whereas someone had their created content leaked that showed adult stuff, that they are gone. So it's just kind of like, I guess the boys are okay if you kind of look at it that way, but that's just one way of looking at it. But yeah, I don't know the stuff behind it, but I hope everything is cool in the camp of Matt Riddle, and eventually we do see him back. And if it is that sort of stuff, that it does kind of get fixed. I mean, obviously his gimmick has been the stoner stuff, but it's clearly not cannabis that is.
No, I mean, no, it's and it's been clear that they have sort of demoted him a bit in recent weeks since I mean, Randy left and RK Bro was like a great act, like one of the top acts at a time. Had that feud with Seth, which he did get a win over him in the fight pit, but since then he's been playing with bongos and kind of right back to just a very two-dimensional comedic stoner gimmick. I think the guy's very, very talented. I think he could be a major player in this company, but has had a lot of kind of obviously this wellness violation, the stuff with his whole divorce and that being all messy, and then on top just having beefs with people like Brock, who was like, I ain't gonna work with him. Goldberg, I ain't gonna work with him. It seems like hopefully this could be a bit of a wake up call, because I think all the potential's there with this guy, and it looks like he just needs to mature a little bit.
Definitely agree. I think since being a star on WWE TV Raw, like he's stepped up and kind of showed that he has been a character that's gotten over and gotten super popular. The stuff with Randy especially. So I hope it can all work out and get it together if that is the case. But yeah, hoping to see him more, because I could see him wrestling at WrestleMania. You need the Randy match. We need to eventually get to that split, and we need to get them back together. And I know Randy's out for a long time, so that is something we go to way down the line. But yeah, I'm still just. I love me some Matt Riddle, but I'm still so bitter as a fan of watching RVD all these years, and then WWE to officially put out a 420 Smoke It Matt Riddle shirt. Rob was like, "Fuck's sakes, guys, like really." But
times are different. Times different. Yeah.
Times have changed, definitely. But smoke them if you got them.
And a final thing on today's show is Chris Jericho is making a movie. He's recently starred as Burke in Terrifier 2, and now he's gonna co-star with Aisha Isa, Stephen Ogg, Sarah Canning, Jonathan Cherry, and Michael Eklund in a horror comedy film about wrestling called I had this here, the Dark Match.
The Dark Match.
The Dark Match. Which is about said to be about a small-time wrestling company that finds itself in a whole lot of trouble with a cult leader after accepting a gig in a remote area. And first question is, what's with cults in wrestling?
Lots of cults, lots of factions and spooky tattooed men, and Jericho's been in, like, there was that Wrestlers versus Zombies. There's been so many like B-level like wrestling related horror movies, but Jericho was in Terrifier with this cameo. I have not watched it. I have seen the clip because it's been posted on Twitter and stuff. I'm so behind. I've not even seen Terrifier 1 yet, but I am interested in watching it more so because I didn't know Jericho was in it for a while, but Terrifier 2 was everywhere in the news when it came out because apparently it's like so gory and gruesome and stuff. So I know it got popular, and the fact Jericho's kind of in it he's probably like, hey, I like this. So him doing now his own movie, like, yeah, of course I'll check it out. I'm a Jericho fan, and I think he can be pretty funny, but pretty sure it's still going to be kind of a B level wrestling horror movie. I don't think it's like MJF's going to be in this movie that's probably going to be like in theaters about the Von Erichs possibly or whatever, but this feels like a streaming service kind of.
But movie. This definitely sounds like one we will review down the line, because a wrestling horror film, come on.
Yeah.
I was tempted for the graphic for this one to use his appearance from Django Unchained, but I thought against it.
No, it wasn't Django Unchained. It was.
Wasn't it Django?
Clerks 3, or one of the Jay and Silent Bob reboot. That's what it was.
Okay.
Django.
Who am I thinking about in Django?
Jonah Hill.
Oh yeah.
Jonah
okay.
Hill, who's the Klansman? I think
that's right. Yeah.
I like when my actors, when my wrestlers get into movies and stuff like that. And Jericho's been doing that for years.
It is funny how quickly after, I mean, I know the MJF Jericho feud is like dead and buried now, but how quickly after MJF getting this film and Jericho's like, well, I do movies first. I did them first. I'm doing one too.
He'll get an Action Andretti cameo in this movie.
Maybe Action Andretti's writing him off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Possibly. He's got to film this movie. It's got to come out for Halloween time, right?
Yeah. Well, that's all our topics today. Is there anything else kind of you have on your mind you want to talk about before we bid you all adieu and say happy Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about everything kind of going on. I really enjoyed Dynamite this week. I enjoyed some of the stuff from SmackDown. The Leprechaun made me laugh, as we say. I watched the Vince thing we kind of talked about. The documentary, I'm waiting for a more new documentary. I want interviews. Like, I'm talking 5-10 years in the future. I'm hoping we get some real, like, documentary interview stuff, not just kind of rehashes of other stuff, but still enjoyed watching that because I learned some stuff. Like I didn't know Vince was doing stuff with like Evil Knievel and stuff like that. I thought that was pretty interesting. But this week, there was, what else? Shibata's wrestling again.
Shibata, Tom Lawler, but again, not in New Japan, right? It's in a different promotion. New Japan won't have him wrestle. It's strange.
Bizarre. Yeah, I'd say my interest right now is going forward. I'm looking forward to finally getting to Moxley versus Hangman whenever we get to that, and then the MJF Danielson feud is something I think the Revolution pay-per-view I imagine would be that. But
that's a long. Right do you see them maybe having a first match in Seattle, and then
January 4th,
and then maybe and then do the rematch at Revolution because Revolution's in March. That's quite a way away.
Okay. No, you're absolutely right. I think the January 4th show should be MJF Danielson, absolutely. But my excitement right now is definitely Wrestle Kingdom. I'm hoping maybe we could. I know it's at like 2. I don't even know what time does it start Eastern, like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. on Wednesday morning. So it's definitely going to be one where I am going to stay up because to some people it's a one-match show, but that one match I think I'm not on my own island where a lot of people will be staying up in different time zones to check it out. It's a big dream match coming. So I'm excited. I'm also, the year is wrapping up, and we're going to be doing a show on our Patreon called Best Match Ever, where the past few years we've been, we get a list, we get our listeners to vote, and then we vote, and then we compile a top 10, and then we kind of go through them in a 2-part episode. So now's the time of year where it's fun going back and rewatching all this stuff. And I know you compiled this list that you tried to narrow down, and I applaud you because I don't know how because you can't please everyone, because then we get people tweeting us and messaging us like
why isn't this in there? Why isn't this? It doesn't mean that match is bad if it's not in the list. It's just this year's been so hard, and weird not. I ended up being like, I can't get this down from 32 to 25, so it's a 32 match list. And go and vote. We need your help. We need to help compile this list. So go to the Facebook page, go to the Patreon page to cast your votes.
Go help us because there's a few. I might rewatch some tonight. I know I got to rewatch Sami Zayn, Johnny Knoxville. I have to rewatch Anarchy in the Arena. There's a few New Japan ones I caught up with this week that I wasn't sure if I watched or not. I would recommend anyone out there who hasn't seen Jun Kasai versus Despy to go check that one out. It's on New Japan World. I mentioned that one before. But it's the easy part of the year because you're just rewatching and cherry picking literally the best shit. So let us know what's on your list. We will be joining John and Wei for the best and worst of show coming out later this month or a few weeks as well. So we're going to be all over the place with all these other shows. So be sure to follow us on all the social media stuff. And hey, $5 a month, patreon.com/Poisonrana. You can get access to the new show that just dropped, Home Alone 2 with John Pollock, chatting all about, Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. But Davey, we also had a fun show this week. I don't think we promoted the top 5 festive moments in wrestling enough because that was a fun show.
Yeah, we've been getting really festive. We kind of watched as many festive moments in wrestling as we could.
All of them.
A real deep dive, and the two of us came together. This was a bit easier than picking match of the year, I think. But we've come up with a top 5, our favorite festive Christmassy moments in wrestling. That was a really fun show and a really easy one to follow along with because most of these clips are on YouTube. They're all about 4 minutes long. Really fun. If you want to get into the festive spirit, go and check out that one. Patreon.com/Poisonrana.
We talk all about tribute to the troops, Santa Claus getting hit by Alberto Del Rio, Mean Street Posse Boiler Room, Santa Tajiri. We talk about it all. So that was a really fun show. And also another Christmas review of Rare Exports, a Finnish Christmas movie. So all the Christmas stuff we did this week on the Patreon, and it's only $5 to get all those shows, but plus access to everything in our back catalog of all the retro NXT reviews, pay-per-view reviews, movie reviews. Everything is on there. It's only $5. Give yourself a Christmas gift by subscribing to our Patreon.
Absolutely. Now, because of just the way kind of the festivities falls this year, this will be the last live Poisonrana of the year. I know we've just got started, but it's Christmas next week, sorry. But we will be releasing our Christmas show in place, so that'll be coming out next week. And then the following week, we're going to be kind of doing a special Poisonrana, talking about all the biggest news stories of the year, because 2022 has been fucking insane. So we're going to be going back right through January, right to the end of the year, talking about the big news stories and kind of how they've developed over the year, and have some fun with that too. And then we'll be back to our regular time of 2 p.m. every Sunday come the new year.
Yes, so follow all our socials, join that Facebook group if you haven't already, and listen to The Detox with myself and Jordan Goodman. It's on this feed. If you haven't checked it out already, it is just that. It's a checkout of reality where we talk about absolutely nothing and everything all in one. And last plug, if you like free stuff, a new show that's coming to our feed here on the free feed is a show called What Up, Doe with B Detroit. And this week, I believe we're going to have our first episode. And I think B and John Cena are going to have a little bit of a chat this week. So that'll be coming out on this free feed as well. So looking forward to all the different content. So far, I've gotten a lot of sweet messages about the Detox. It was just me and Jordan not talking a whole lot of wrestling and just shooting the shit. So appreciate all the kind words. We appreciate all the likes, retweets, follows, subscribes, all that stuff. It helps us and goes a long way. So thank you, everybody. Hope you're having some happy holidays and all that stuff. But the love is real. Our DMs are always open at Poisonrana Pod.
And obviously we'll be back talking about wrestling this Tuesday on youtube.com/postwrestling as we cover this week's NXT in Up Next.
Yes. So thank you, everybody. We love you so much. Hey, and thanks. We had a guest on today. Xenia was amazing.
She was awesome. We'd love to have her back at some point.
Yes.
Really good chat
Go follow everything she does as well. We'll have the
at Xenia did that.
Yes, exactly. And she did. So thank you, everybody.
Oh, sorry, one more thing. I know, Plug Central. But we're not quite at the super chat status yet on YouTube, but we have set up a tip structure. If you've liked what you've heard today and you do want to support us, it's in the description. Hit the link below. It's right at the bottom there. And you can leave a little tip to say Merry Christmas, thank you, well done, fuck off, whatever you want. So go and check that out.
All the money going forward in the next few months that is entered into the tip option, after a while of it gaining some traction, we're going to take all the money out. I'm going to turn it into, we don't have ones in Canada, I'm going to turn it into fives, and live on a show, I'll make it rain on Davie. So everybody go hit that tip option. It's going to happen.
I thought that was happening on Wednesday.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
Let's get out of here.
Thank you, everybody. That's it. That's all. Take care. Goodbye. And be safe.
Ahoy!